Okay. I don't remember which of these is the forest set and which of these is the loser set I did,
Mm-hmm.
but they're in here.
Okay.
Um,
Can you do a
so
quick intro to the stream before we get started? Just who you
uh,
are, maybe where you're from, how long you've been playing, goals for the
okay.
game.
My tag's Cuno. I'm born and raised Houston, Texas. My first tournament was in San Antonio 2007.
Oh wow.
Um, so I've been playing on and off for forever. I still suck.
Started before me.
Yeah. I remember the brawl fiction.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely back in the day.
Um, but yeah, I sort of been not entering tournaments over the past year,
Mm-hmm.
just like focusing on other shit, and I'm trying to like come back like a little, and I don't know. I feel like before I like took my break, I understood at least how to get better from where I was,
Mm-hmm.
and something has fallen out of my head, and I've like lost my ability to like look at the game critically. It feels like I don't know.
Okay. All right, and so this is Marth Dittos.
Yeah, it's smart that is.
Okay. Okay, so
One of the games I tried Sheik against Zeker because I thought it was best of five and it was actually best of three. And
oh, that's rough.
whatever.
Okay. All right. So what do you like? Because you said you feel like you kind of lost the feeling that like you know what you need to work on to improve.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like is happening? Like, what is your experience of playing the game that is like frustrating or doesn't isn't working out how you want it to?
Right. So it's like when I watch VODs like Zane or old M2K or whatever Marth VODs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can identify like the buttons they're pressing in neutral
Mm-hmm.
and like generally like those situations, but it always feels like I just have this list of buttons I can press and I'm not really ever pressing them for a reason.
Okay.
And so when people play like at a different tempo than I do, like if they play higher tempo, I get run over. If they play lower tempo, I get whiff punished.
Okay. So you're
And so
having trouble like you don't have a framework to know like why you should do certain movements or attacks in neutral compared to other ones.
right, it's like, do I jump in late fair here? Sure. Do I down tilt dash back? Why not?
That
And so
makes
I'm
a lot of
rolling
sense.
dice,
Okay.
and
You'd be
because I'm
very
Marth and have a
surprised.
punish game,
You'd be surprised how many people actually play like that, even up to like top 100 level.
I believe it. But it's like against a lot of like spacey matchups, if I roll that dice enough and I get a grab, I can kill them. But like
Mm-hmm.
that's not winning.
Right, exactly. Okay, so you are the Black Marth?
I think both of these sets I'm not black. Yeah, I'm red
Okay, so you're
or yeah, okay. So
so
this
it's
I'm red against
IU
forest I'm white.
990.
Yeah,
That's
that's
you.
me.
Okay, okay. So you're the red one.
Yeah, I'm the
Oh
red.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So you're red. All right, let's just watch for a second, see what happens.
Most of these full hops are me not wave dashing.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Okay, that was good. It seems like once you have a situation where your options are narrowed down and you kind of have a good idea of like, okay, like I just have to react and like do a tree branch of one of these few moves, you look a lot more comfortable in those spots.
Yes, very much agree.
Okay, so far, not actually a lot has happened this game. Like, there are some spots where I could go into and talk about like neutral game stuff, but most of the match has just been you like reacting to situations which are like pretty clearly presented, like there, like just like whiff
Yep.
punishing and stuff like that. So I might go to the next game after this, depending on what happens for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I, I remember playing this game happen. I'm like, that went well, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's try the next one. We might come back to that first game in a minute.
Yeah. If I remember the FD game, I get blown up.
Okay. Oh, this is the second game, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm not
No, that's
screen sharing for
before
you. You're
that.
you're stuck watching my stream. My bad.
I
Here,
and
I sometimes forget to do that. All right, you can
that,
see it now, right?
that's game one versus Forest.
Oh, so this is game one.
That's game one versus Forest when I'm
Okay.
playing. I
Wait.
don't think they
So,
the right order.
all right. What's game two versus?
Game two is
Let me
one
see.
five one six five five.
Okay, it's not this
No, no,
one.
no, reading the wrong one.
So it's
Sorry.
not the third one. One, two, three, four.
153434.
Oh, this is
That's
the
game
sheet
three.
game.
That's the game three. Yeah,
Okay, I don't want to watch the sheet game.
I don't want to watch the sheet game either.
Okay. Perfect. Nice. You always want to hit those if they give them to you.
I will mention the one like micro situation I'd written down to like talk about is when I'm on ledge, like in general, but especially on this matchup. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm stuck for an eternity if they just
Okay,
wait.
yeah, there are a few tricks to play on this stage, or not on this stage, but in that situation. I mean, yeah, stuff like that is like it's not something to mention because that's just melee. Like that stuff just happens.
Yeah.
So based on what you were saying, there is actually more intentionality to your movements than you might realize. I think. So like I think you have like the thoughts are there, but maybe not connected to like a conscious model.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, that stock felt really dumb, even watching it.
I thought you said you got blown up this game, but
I, it's coming.
it's coming. I like that. Yeah, so you're aggressive. Like you're once you're at advantage, it's pretty good. I think it looks like like your whiff punishes in general. Like a lot of these are actually really good decisions. I'm surprised based on just like what you were kind of saying about it, but I guess you have been playing for like a long time, so you.
Yeah, I know exactly how much I suck. It's great.
No, I think you think you're worse than you are.
Probably. Thank you. Good, I didn't
So
die
okay,
there.
so because I haven't really run across anything so far where it's super easy to make the points that I'm trying to make. I can sort of go over a basic framework for neutral game with you, and then we can kind of see if we see any examples of this, because there's been so many situations here where like basically you just kind of sit there for a second, like just kind of basic neutral, you just wait for a split second, and then the other Marth just throws out some garbage and you punish them for it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's difficult to tell you to like zero in on some neutral situation when I don't really see you getting baited. You're like the other guy is just kind of like putting himself in situations where it's easy for you to whiff punish. Like, I don't think like I feel like you've won like almost every single neutral situation. But we'll find it. We'll find the critical thing to analyze.
Oh,
That was very funny. Wow.
please tell me up throw.
Oh, he's dead. He's
Okay,
dead.
good. Yeah.
Over 200, I think. I think almost all the characters die.
God damn it. Dead. Yeah, so it's like, okay, my perception of it's colored by the fact that I lost, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like I won a lot of the neutral and I still lost, you know, and like that happens sometimes. But it feels like it happens to me a lot.
Okay. I want to go over this game again. Sometimes people's issues just sort of jump out, and then other times they're a little trickier. So yeah, all right. I have a better idea, I think, of what I'm watching for right now.
Okay.
Because yeah, like that happens, and it's like, all right, what do we do to analyze that? And it's like, no, that was perfect.
No, yeah, that was fine. You
Yeah,
died.
you don't need training. You just do that 4 stocks. No. Like something like this is almost like ideal neutral. So like when you're in this situation, like what are you thinking? Like why? Oh wow, look at that synced up dash dance. That was crazy. So when you do this, what are you thinking here when you do this? Are you expecting him to jump over you?
So the run in is because I'm trying to eat space, and like as I'm running in, I like foxtrot out of it, and I'm literally 50-50ing if I'm going in or out, and then I'm reacting to whatever they do.
Okay.
And I feel like I tend to like going in more because if they jump like this, they whiff, and if they dash back, have chased.
Okay.
But I get like preempt grabbed and shit, and I'm not like, I'm just like moving, waiting to react to something. I never feel
Right,
like I'm
yeah. So that's why you're
forcing
kind of
errors.
that's why you're kind of getting like so many of these like whiff punish situations, I guess, is because you're just sort of doing a mix up into reacting, which honestly isn't too bad of a strategy. Like if you hit really good punishes, like it's really not. But okay, so let's get to a situation where we can analyze a little bit better. Yeah, like when he does something like that, you know, like there's not a lot of neutral there to think about. It's kind of just like waiting. So this might just not be the best match to do, but we'll get through it again. There's definitely going to be a spot.
Yeah, I just haven't entered that much, so I really don't have.
You have a what?
I haven't entered like hardly anything, so I just don't have odds.
Because it's like you look like you're making reads and stuff like that, but then your perception of it is that you are literally just pressing the buttons and then reacting to whiff punishes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then the problem isn't actually the things you're doing, because the things you're doing seem to be fairly correct. Obviously, you know, punish can always be improved and stuff like that, and like, but the actual, like you said, the actual buttons you are pressing are not that different from the buttons that like really good players are pressing in similar situations. So the goal then is to create more reasons for why you choose these options. And so to do that, it requires you to understand your opponent better, because the more you understand both what your opponent wants, what the game looks like to your opponent, and like what your opponent is thinking, by understanding those things, you can inform your decision more of which of those mix-ups to choose. Ultimately, in the end, you are going to basically react to a neutral situation by guessing what one of those options. Ultimately, that is what it comes down to in like any sort of fighting game. Like if you Street Fighter or something, you stand next to your opponent. Like ultimately, there is like a form of like rock paper scissors that happens. But there are ways to understand what your opponent might want more and sort of like consciously play it out better. So let's look for some specific moments where we might be able to analyze something like that. I think, yeah, I might check out the set with Forrest afterward, because like so many of these situations are like strictly just like him, like just doing basic movement for half a second, and then he just like suicides himself basically.
Yeah. Yeah, all I really remember from the set with Forrest is he spent a good 60 seconds fishing for down smash at the end of game 2.
That sounds like him. Okay, wait. So what happens here? How do you get hit by this? Okay, see down tilt.
I'm antsy to kill him.
Okay. Yeah. I'm working on it. I'm working on thinking of exactly how to explain, or like the best thing to talk about. Yeah, this might just not be a great set for it. Because what I'm really looking for is some longer dash dance neutral situations, because those should come up more. But so far I don't think there's been a single dash dance neutral or something like that. And so like that is something that you might want to do a little bit more just in general by doing, yeah, like there's just literally none of them. Like I don't think you guys have done a single like dash dance neutral this whole time. But basically the idea is you want to see what your opponent is looking for or spacing around. So for instance, you might get into a dash dance battle, and then with Marth Dittos specifically, like, okay, so ignore pivot forward smash, because that's just as Marth, or like against Marth I should say, at any moment he can basically just pivot forward smash, and like the overall risk reward of him randomly pivot forward smashing is not overall that high, or it's not that good for him, and so he's probably not going to do it that often. So let's just ignore pivot forward smash for the moment, and focus on what his other options are. So he's got dash grab, he has run crouch down tilt, he has approaching nair, and he has approaching forward air. Those are basically his only options that, like, if you are just standing there in place, those are the only options that he can, like, realistically use to, like, get you.
Right.
And so you want to see what... So basically, your goal is information, because the more information you have on your opponent and the way they play, the more informed your guesses can be, and the more informed your guesses are, the more accurate they'll be probability-wise, and therefore you will win more matches than you will lose. And so the first goal of any match is information gathering, where you want to see how your opponent plays. And the way you see how your opponent plays is by longer interactions where you maintain safety. So, for instance, like, there's situations where, like, let's say you dash in, but then you dash back. And when you dash in, your opponent, he dashes back also. And so you go, okay, so he might not still be in that zone, but he was just in a zone where he was attempting to whiff punish my approaching aerial. Because if you dash in, like, you're not, or whiff punish my approaching aerial or grab. Like, one of my approaches, he was just looking to whiff punish me. And so you say, okay, is he still trying to whiff punish me? Like, does he have enough stage left to whiff punish me? And then you might try the dash again and see what he does. And so your goal is to build a model of, like, okay, so he dashed back the first time. So now, is he gonna come in, or is he going to just wait for me? Because he's sort of declared already that he's kind of like defensively having intent. If you dash in and he dashes back, then you go, okay, so when I dash back, is he gonna chase me, or is he gonna wait in his new position? And then you can kind of wait for him. And like, you're pretty safe if you're just waiting. Like, he doesn't really have, like, if Marth does approaching aerials against Marth, the other Marth can pretty much always just dash back. And
Yeah.
so, and if he does the down tilt, that doesn't really like put him ahead. It's more of like a neutral reset with like a little bit of damage. And then also it's like a pretty difficult commitment to make. But you can see what he does. Like, is he gonna try to wave dash up down tilt? Is he gonna try to running down tilt? Like, what does he try to do? And then you try to see what that option is to start determining the way he reacts to certain situations. And then you can like let's say he does like 3 options at the start of a match, then in the future you can tune your mix-up game, because you're still going to be sort of guessing between these good options. You can tune your mix-up game towards the options that he's already shown. So
So one of the things I think he said that I think was interesting
yeah.
was how do I fish for information and not feel like I'm just giving up space, right? Because I'm trying to stay safe and like bait reactions to like see what
Mm-hmm.
they are. Not necessarily bait a reaction that I can punish, but just see what he does. But like a lot of times that's dash in, dash out. If the reaction was to chase after me, now I've lost stage, and that feels real bad to me. Which
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm uncomfortable, I guess, like doing that for the sake of scouting.
Okay, so you're saying if you dash in and you dash back, and then they come after you, you lose stage.
Yeah,
So
is what it
what
feels
are
like.
you losing stage to? What are they doing that forces you to move?
mm, Force is probably the wrong word, but it's like one of the like, I guess, tenets I have in my head is that Marth doesn't like people directly like behind him, right, like on his
Mm-hmm.
ass. And so if I run in close enough to bait a reaction and dash back, and the reaction was to dash after me, they're basically on top of me behind me. And I don't have a lot of, it doesn't feel like I have good options to punish them having chased after me. And they have tempo on me from like that position.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's true, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just. Yeah, no. It's really that you're sharing these thoughts. This is really good because this helps point me in the right direction, and it's sort of like an interesting question to ask or like to think about it. I think you are. So you have to think about the game from both players' perspective, and also realize like what's reactable and like what's not. So if you dash in and then you dash out, there's if the other person is able to dash in with your dash back at the same spacing that or like at a spacing where you feel like really threatened, then that would mean that they chose to go forward before they saw you dash back.
Yeah.
So that would mean that they responded to your dash in with their own
By
dash
reading.
in or happen to just dash in at the same time. So the thing is from your opponent's perspective, they don't immediately see that situation as an advantage because what they did is so you're basically in a situation where you're saying like I dash in and then I decide to dash in dash back and then they dash in a split second later. So from their perspective, they are like, okay, what's going to happen? Okay, I think I'm going to dash in and see what the other Marth does. This is from their perspective. And then they see that you're dashing in towards them, so they would need to like have already made the decision to realize that you are going to go back, and so that is like a preemptive decision from their end, and so that is a bunch of information for you, and that it's not that you're just automatically in a situation that you're losing, because if you are playing the enemy Marth and you just decide to dash in and they dash in dash back, it doesn't feel like you're immediately winning, because they could also just dash. So it's like, let's say they dash in and then you start to dash in after that and they dash back, and then you think, aha, they're in front of me. Then what if the other Marth dashes through? So like, sorry,
Sure.
I got a bit mixed up on who's who. So let's pretend
Yeah,
that's you
no,
again.
I'm with you though.
Okay, cool. So it's like that is still a neutral situation because of what is reactable, but you gathered information just by doing the dash dances. So you got the information that your opponent also tried to dash forward. So that's sort of like an aggressive intent from both of you, that you're both trying to dash in and see if the other guy will throw something out or dash back. And so you now have this information that so far they are 100% likely to dash in given the opportunity. And so when they're in a similar situation the next time, you can, maybe try to, wall in place and see, okay, did they dash in the next time? And your opponent is thinking similar things. And so it's kind of like, you can't think that like, oh, if I wait for a second to gather information, my opponent is at some sort of immediate advantage because they're, some sort of task monster that punishes me whenever I'm not facing towards them or in a perfect position or something like that. Your opponent is also, if they're a bad player, they're just going to be throwing out moves kind of randomly. And if you just sort of play safe and solid, kind of like what you're doing, where you're just sort of like playing somewhat normal, throwing out mix-ups and reacting to their whiffs, you will just beat bad players if you get good punish game. And so that's kind of irrelevant, and you don't need to like structure your neutral game. I've told this to people a bunch of times, like, don't structure your neutral game around beating players who don't play neutral.
Okay, so that sort of leads into my second question.
Great. More questions you have, the better.
When I'm scouting for information, how do I differentiate people reacting to stimulus, right, me dashing in, and happenstance, right, them happening to do something? Like, does that differentiation even matter?
So there is a differentiation there, and this has been a big point of frustration for me in the community and just playing this game in general, is that I will do dashes and then my opponents don't react to my dashes, and that is very frustrating because like you're trying to be like, I dash in, what is your answer? And they're like, I don't care what you said, I'm doing this, and it's kind of like, wow. So, but the thing is like, as frustrating as it is that like the people aren't actually reacting to your motions, if they're not reacting to your motions, that means they are performing a predefined pattern or habit, which is inherently weaker than like an observational movement. So like a movement that they're doing in reaction to what you're doing, that is like more complex, because you're like, they might like, is this their information gathering dash dance? Is this their trying
Or is
to
this
scare me?
they go 3 beats and then down tilt?
Right, but if they do 3 beats and down tilt and they just seemed like they weren't paying any attention to you, then like you can just store that as like, what if they just do 3 beats and down tilt again? Like, that sounds like an easy punish,
Okay.
So like playing against somebody, so you're right. So you start with the information gathering, and part of the first part of information gathering, and this happens, I don't know if you've ever watched me play unranked, but I will go on unranked, and within the first 2 to 3 seconds of a game, I'll kind of know whether it's somebody that I actually want to play, somebody that I can like, kind of learn against, versus somebody who's either too new, too inexperienced, or just doesn't have a good enough understanding of the game to like play. And it's because I have very attuned information gathering when the match starts, so I can start off the match and I can, based off of the first couple seconds, like, are they responding to my movements? Like, hello, like, is anybody there? Like, and if they're not responding to the movements, then they're just basically doing predefined patterns. And so one thing you can store in those cases is you can say like, okay, what triggered that pattern? Was it And usually what triggers that pattern is a spacing. There's some sort of spacing situation, and you've probably felt this playing some bad Marths here and there in Ditto, is that like there are certain Marths where you just dash dance at a certain spacing, and then you just know in your heart they're about to wave dash in down tilt. And it's a very easy punish because at a certain range they just sort of dash dance for a bit and they see you dash dancing there and they're like, oh, that's right at wave dash down tilt range, and they just kind of throw it out. So
Right.
when you're playing those types of players, that is like an easy W. That you should not invest, like you should invest as little brain power as possible in the players who do not pay attention. The
Yeah.
more you
I remember complaining to someone, like my big frustration is sort of what I hear you talk about when you're playing unranked, is like they're not playing the game. They're not willing to have the conversation with me. And it's like, okay, you've stomped out of shield 4 times. I've hit you for it. Clearly on the 5th time, and they stomped out of shield again.
Right, and it's like those players are not fun to play against, and I don't think they are worth practicing against either. But you need to be able to beat them, obviously, to progress in a tournament.
Right.
And so the idea is be good at recognizing as quickly as possible whether someone is actually paying attention and adapting to your movements. And if someone is not doing that, then just watch carefully to see which options they choose and start blind covering those options. And it's and significantly easier game than and the thing is don't get sucked into like, man, they always stomp, so what I have to do is react to their stomps, because that gives them more control over the match than they deserve. What you want to do is bait out those options. Like very, very directly try to get them to do those options, or pressure them in ways that causes those options to sort of come out. You don't want to just like, because like if somebody does 5 stomps in a row and they think, and then you're just sort of waiting for them to stomp again, they might catch on to that, and then they'll like nair, and then you go, oh, like they were just being an idiot and they got this free mix-up. And so that's why you don't want to give someone control of the match when they're like a weaker player like that. You just want to start doing mix-ups, force those bad options out, and punish them.
Right. So if they let me know that they're going to stomp, act on the knowledge. Don't just wait for them to stomp and go, aha, I knew it, and then try to hit them.
Exactly. Try to use that knowledge to gain a greater advantage for yourself, and just sort of go for it. But then the good news is that most players who play like that are not actually that good, and so you can beat them by just doing mix-ups into whiff punish without even like... When I play somebody who's not paying attention to the game, I am actually almost never trying to actually gather information and use it against them. I just do basic mix-ups, and they are not paying enough attention. And like if somebody is just gonna stomp out of shield randomly at any opportunity, they're probably not gonna do well just sort of playing standard neutral, because they're not paying attention. Like, it's not part of their gameplay to pay attention to me, and so they're just gonna start falling for basic baits and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Okay.
So that's the first thing, is when you're playing against people who aren't paying attention, then you shouldn't really pay attention either. And there's always this joke that I make, which is like, the scariest thing you can do is try against a Ganon in pools. Where like, if there's like a Ganon in your pools at a national or something, the worst thing you can do is get into the match and be like, all right, how am I going to figure this guy out, you know? Like, if you do that, even as like a top 20 player, you might literally lose.
Because I've beaten a lot of Marths with Ganon in pools, so yeah, I've been on the other end.
Okay, good. You know what it's like, where they're like trying to figure you out, and you're like, figure out this forward air, man. Like, you're like, it's in your face, and they're going, oh, like, what is he doing? It doesn't even mean anything. And you're like, yeah, you can't cover it, and so you just beat them up. And I've done that same thing too. And so it's like, you just, when somebody is worse or they're not paying attention, don't worry about it. Just play the solid bait game and bait people out, and it'll be easy. So ignoring all of those people, because they're not really worth thinking about neutral with.
Okay.
When you get past all those people, you are now playing against people who actually pay attention to your movements, and so therefore you can store the information with confidence that they were in fact paying attention.
Okay.
So that's the solution to that problem.
That's one of the more interesting things about Unranked is I have, like, in tournament, people are seated, so like I can
Mm-hmm.
sort of guess. But on ranked, is like I have to figure out if where they are, right? And that's hard.
Right. Well, so the thing is what? So okay. So information gathering. If that is difficult for you, then information gathering is actually the biggest thing that you need to be thinking about,
Okay.
because I can tell within 3 seconds or less whether somebody's paying attention.
Okay.
And so that is something like you should, if there's one takeaway from the lesson so far, and probably just after the lesson in general, the number one takeaway I'm sort of realizing is probably going to be information gathering in general. Because like I said, you once you're in an advantageous situation, you capitalize, fairly properly for like the level you're at. Once you get to a higher level of neutral and information gathering and stuff like that, like you'll like basically once you balance out more and fix this sort of neutral slash information based problem in your gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
then then feel free to like work on your punish and stuff like that. But like until you're like more balanced as a player, I think you should really heavily focus on this weakness.
Okay.
So when you play an opponent next time, what I want you to do is literally just dash dance. Just sit there and dash dance and see what they do. Like, just dash dance on autopilot and just watch your opponent, especially in the Ditto. The Ditto is what I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
Because if
Sure.
you do that versus Falco, he's just going to laser you and you're going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
I learned nothing,
Yep.
So each character has. So the better you understand each character, the better your information gathering can be. Where, like, if you don't really understand, like, for instance, Falco, if you don't understand the way Falco works, you might not categorize, like, a laser in place. Excuse me. You might not categorize a laser in place and an approaching laser that differently. You'll just be like, he lasered me. But once you know the way Falco works, your brain just goes, aha, he did an approaching laser right there. Or he did a laser in place. Or he did a dash back, dash in laser. Or another big one with Falcos is like after they laser, do they dash in or do they dash back after the laser? And if you're
Right.
not if you don't understand the way Falco works, your information gathering will be a lot weaker there because you'll say, well, he lasered into a dash dance. And it's like, right, which one? Did he go forward or did he go back? And so I think that is a skill that you can hone a lot. And I think that you should probably, and because we're focusing on the Marth Ditto in this lesson, I think the Marth Ditto is a good place to start.
Okay.
Where don't think about advantage and disadvantage as much like while you're practicing, because when you have a big weakness, what people want to do is they want to say, here is my normal play, and then I have this weakness, and my goal is to play normal and then add onto my weakness such that I surpass my normal play. That is the goal of what people think they should do when they have a weakness, of like, I will just play normal, and then when I fix this weakness while I'm playing normal, then I will be better than I was before, and that will reflect in my results. And then what will happen is they try to do their new thing, and they try to do it on top of their normal gameplay, and
And nothing
they
works.
don't react properly, or they get confused, or they panic because they're kind of in a confusing situation, and then they do a little bit worse, and they go, okay, so I somehow need to implement this without getting worse. And it's kind of like, no, none of that actually matters. What you want to do when you have a big weakness is just focus on that. Ignore all other parts of your gameplay. So it's like, if you are worried that by gathering information you will give up space, giving up space is a completely separate goal from gathering information. And if you're focused on gathering information, your opponent forces you to give up space for whatever reason, then you now have experience trying to information gather, being forced out of this position. You can see possible precursors to it, and then maybe next time you're gathering information and they move to a position to try to move you, then you say, oh, maybe I'll dash in really quick and try to get them out of that range where I feel like they're pushing me back. Or they push you to the corner, and then you're in the corner and you're like, okay, let me see, like, let me practice playing out of the corner while trying to gather information. And so those uncomfortable situations that like violate other rules of your play, such as don't give up center and stuff like that, it's okay to get into those situations to practice one specific thing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
don't
No, that
don't
makes sense.
so yeah, so don't worry about your performance if you're playing people that you normally do really well against and you're trying to just literally just dash dance and watch what they do, and then if they overcommit, obviously you feel free to punish it, but otherwise see what they do to move you. Because like what are they gonna do really? Like are they gonna if you're dash dancing and they run in and grab, there's a pretty good chance they'll just miss. So they're probably not going to do that. And it's like, are they going to run in an aerial? Oh, they might just whiff again. Are they going to down tilt you? Oh, I mean, you might just happen to jump over it and kill them. So, like, not saying that you will do that, but, like, they have to be prepared for your possible reaction to all their things that they're going to do. And so you'll get to see, like, what they actually do. And one thing you can do in particular is dash dance and, like, don't react to anything they do. And that's really difficult. But literally just dash dance, and they'll be like dashing in and threatening stuff. Just keep going. Just I'm dash dancing. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. This is the way I want to live my life. So you just dash dance back and forth, and then eventually they're gonna have to swing. And then what you can do is say, okay, that is one way they got me out of the dash dance. And you'll be surprised as Marth if you just do that dash dance, how many people get kind of stumped. Like, they'll kind of dash in and they'll try to bait you. You just keep dash dancing. They dash away. And they go, huh. And they kind of dash back and they try to bait you. And you don't really do anything. Eventually, people have to try something. And then you get the idea of, like, okay, so this is, like, a possible thing they can do. And just sort of repeat that process, and you will get better at realizing ways that you can dash dance in order to gain the information while avoiding those things that they try to do.
Okay.
So,
okay,
all right,
that makes sense.
Let's keep moving forward here. So yeah, like situations like this, where you're doing these dash dances, these happen a lot in Marth Dittos, and there is no way to ever consistently like react and win this situation. So when you go for stuff like this, where you guys are both trying to do an option, you go for the down tilt, he goes for the grab, he happens to win this situation. There is absolutely no way to play such that like this will never happen.
Okay.
But the information gathering allows you to win these situations more often than not. And that is your goal. Because if something like this happens, this doesn't mean you messed up. I would, like, if I'm watching this situation, there is nothing, nothing egregious that you did in this situation that would, like, obviously, I think that doing this wave dash into the corner is very bad. Like, you're in this spot, which is great. Like, he's whiffing a grab here, and you just kind of, like, wave dash into the corner. Like, that's
He's
pretty...
invincible. I'm scared.
Hmm?
He's invincible. I'm scared.
Right. But, well, the point was that you didn't have to wave dash here. But the thing is, what I'm saying is that is, like... The point I was making is that is a little nitpicky. Okay. Like, I'm saying I could sit here and nitpick and say, oh, well, you should have, stayed perfectly close to him as his invincibility ends and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, like, that kind of stuff is not actually that relevant here.
Okay.
Because no matter what you did, like, let's say you didn't wave dash here and you did a dash, dash, dash in the center of the stage, he could also randomly just literally, like, I pick here, and grab you or something like that. So there will be mix-up. There are situations where you aren't able to directly win the neutral no matter what, where this is, like, one of the first real neutral situations this whole set, where you go for the down tilt, and honestly, I think you probably would have won it, but you were, like, a little slow. But that's okay. But the idea is you went for these mix-ups, he wins the mix-up. So what you can gather from losing this situation is it's obviously difficult to contextualize this whole thing, But the next time you're in a situation where this might happen, you can run in and then dash back here and see if he does the dash back, dash in, grab to try to punish you. Because this dash back, dash in, grab he does is not like a reaction to your down tilt. Like, let me see. What exactly is
this down tilt?
So he does the down tilt. He knows he's like, okay, you're gonna try to punish my missed down tilt. So I am going to go back, and then he sees you chasing him. He's reacting to like right here basically, and then he's going, okay. So he sees that he reacted like at this point back here, and then he's going in, and then he's like, well, he's probably still going to be chasing me. This is his read that you're still chasing, because if you had just dashed back here, this wouldn't have worked. And so he goes for this. And so you go, okay, so the next time so you have to learn to contextualize it based on knowledge of the character and stuff like that. So the best way to contextualize this situation is you are attempting to punish his down tilt. So that is the best way to store this information, is saying he down tilted and I ran in after him and he ran away, and then he dashed back in and counterattacked here. So the next time he whiffs a down tilt and I run in, I'm going to dash in, dash back, and see if he does the dash back into the grab here.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's all about, as you're playing the game, to contextualize those situations to see what options your opponent likes. And yes, there are things where it's kind of like, oh, well, he did this last time, so he's probably not going to do it the next time. Like, that's what people will kind of think. But surprisingly, it's not that way. People actually can't mix up everything. If you are gathering a good amount of information, you will be very surprised at even super top players. They will do stuff like that where they always down tilt, dash back, and then dash and grab or something like that. Like, people will, people want to believe that like everyone is just mixing up all the time and it's all super unpredictable. But in reality, people repeat habits a lot. I repeat habits a lot. There are a lot of situations where like I laser, somebody dashes in, and I just instinctually dash back out of the laser. But that gives people information that, the thing is, you don't know what information your opponent is gathering, and so a lot of times sort of safe habits that you've developed will sort of come out until those get punished. So I'll be playing like a falcon or something, and then I laser, and then he dashes in, and I dash back, and then he just short hops across the stage and stomps, and he hits my dash back. So then because I got punished for it, I go, he might have been like, that might have been a read. Like, he might have seen me laser dash back more times than that. So then, all I'll do is I'll do a laser, and then I'll turn around in place and get ready to up tilt him and see if he nares in again or stomps in again and gives me an opening. So there are habits that people will repeat, and so your job is to attempt to contextualize those habits in a way that you can understand them better and increase your probability. Like, this all goes towards trying to increase your probability of winning the mix-up. And so if your opponent does something one time, if your option the next time beats that thing, you are increasing your odds of winning the mix-up because you are forcing them to do something different in that situation. And a lot of times throughout a set, you'll realize you'll kind of, as you get better at this information gathering thing, you'll kind of do a thing where like you start, this happens to me so much, where I start gathering information on a player. I see, okay, they tried this, okay, and then I counter this the next time, and let's say I get the opening. Like, they try thing A, then the next time I do it, I counter thing A, or I bait thing A, they do thing A, and I hit them. So then you think, okay, well, they're definitely not going to try thing A again. So what you do the next time is you should still try to challenge thing A, because you're basically like +1. Like, they did A, and you countered it correctly. So then if the next time you say, okay, I'm countering A again, I'm going to bait A and then counter it, and then they decide to do a counter to that and hit you, they have just evened up the game.
Okay.
It's not that you are losing that. It's like
So the way I contextualize that is the way I feel like I've always played is like, okay, they did thing A, I'm gonna punish thing A, and then if I hit them for the second time, the third time, I've been assuming that okay, they've learned, and I need to not do that until they show me that they actually learn.
Right. You want to continue punishing it until the person has adapted away from that thing, because that gives you further information. Like, basically, once you get that first punish on A, then you're +1. Assuming you hit all your punishes and everything. We're only talking about neutral. Like, you are
Right.
+1 interaction. You successfully recognized something that they do, and you have now punished it one time. So
Okay.
if you try to punish it a second time and they now hit you for it, they needed to do some sort of option to hit you for that. And now you are even, but you are still up on information because you've
Shown the same thing, and they
already
haven't.
beaten one of their options. And they've beaten one of your counters, but then you can now say, okay, these are the two things they have shown me. Is there anything that I have that can beat those two things? Sometimes there is something that can beat those two things. In that case, the next time you're in that situation, you should try it out. Otherwise, okay, so this is getting a little bit more complicated, but basically from that spot, there are two directions you can go. You can play the game of how often do they switch between a mix-up. So for simplicity's sake, let's say you end up in a situation where it's a basic 50-50, where they either do A or B. And if you guess A, you hit them. If you're right, but if you're wrong, they hit you. And so you end up in a basic 50-50. And so in those situations, you say, okay, how often do they change their option? It's kind of like playing somebody in actual RPS, where you're saying like, okay, how do they prefer A? Is B their option when they read me countering A, or do they actually 50-50 these options?
Okay.
And so there's that direction you can go, and that is an okay direction to go. That is like a direction to go when you don't know a way out of it. But there's a way around that. And like I said, this is getting a little bit abstract, but I'll do my best to explain it. So what you can do is, once you've established that there is like a 50-50 in a situation, then you can pretend to set up that 50-50, and when they accept the 50-50, that it's either going to be A or B, you then do an option that has nothing to do with that situation.
Okay.
So there are situations where like you're like, okay, I'm gonna wave dash in down tilt, and the other guy gets hit by it, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna wave dash in down tilt again, and he short hops over it and fares you, and you go, okay, so this time I'm gonna wave dash in dash back to beat the fair. And then, so that you kind of have set up like a 50-50. You've established with this person you're communicating with that like, hey, if I wave dash in down tilt, then you can beat it with fair. But if I wave dash in and then dash back, your fair will whiff and I'll hit you. And so obviously the fact that I'm using an in-game example, things can go off in a bunch of different directions. There's all kinds of different moves that people can do. But just for the sake of simplicity. So let's say that is like a 50-50 off of your wave dash in. Then what you could do is say, okay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to dash in as if I'm going to wave dash in, but instead I literally just wait there, and I just dash dance in place. So the opponent might be in this zone of thinking like, okay, I am going to either be countering the down tilt with my jump, or I'm countering their wave dash and dash back. And one of those two is going to happen, and they're kind of looking out for those two. But once you have your opponent convinced that they're looking out for those two things, you can play a completely different game. You can position yourself in a totally new situation and see if they're still stuck in the previous mentality of like the old situation that you were communicating with them. then
Right.
they're more likely to throw out one of those two options. And if you have better odds that you say, okay, they're more likely then like they are more likely to throw out these two options because they think we're playing this 50-50, but we're not actually playing it.
Yeah.
And
And
so
it's important from my end to make sure if I'm showing them a new position that it's at least visually close to like the
yeah,
opening
you
to
want to
the
make it
initial
look
position.
from their end as reactably as like within the reaction window as much as possible. You want to make them think you are about to do that thing.
Okay. Right.
And so this is something that Mango has been good at forever. And I first noticed him doing this in 2015. And this is like one of his biggest strengths in neutral, I would say, is that he says, okay, we're going to play this game. And his opponent says, okay, we're definitely. So he's like, okay, we're going to play this game. And his opponent's like, okay. And they're expecting one of a few very solid options from him. And then, as soon as they agree to it, he is playing a completely different game. But their brain is already off in this direction of like, okay, so last time he did option A of the 50-50, and then he did option B twice before that. So is he going to go for A again, or is he going to default to B? And like Mango is literally off in a different direction, thinking of a completely different mix-up than this person is doing. And he's in a zone where he's like, okay, so I give them some sort of probability, or I have some sort of idea that they will probably accept this mix-up. They will agree to play this mix-up, and then I will be ready to put them in a bad position or punish them for even thinking that this was the mix-up that we were going to be in.
Okay.
Does that
No,
make
I'm with
sense?
you.
I did
No,
my
I'm
I did
with
my
you.
absolute
Yeah.
best to describe that
No, that was
well.
very good. No, I'm with you. I'm having to bring up my game theory classes from college in my head, but we're good. Okay.
So this is like all this stuff because you were saying at the beginning that you had you're pressing buttons but you're not sure why. This whole direction, this whole idea of like lying of like first you set up 50-50s, you gather what your opponent's preferences are, you agree upon certain situations, then you deviate from those situations, sort of like there's truthful communication where you and your opponent both agree to a mix-up and you try to guess right to beat them on the mix-up. Then there's dishonest communication where you imply, hey, we're going to start doing this mix-up, pick your option, I'll choose mine, I'm going to read you in this RPS, and then as soon as they think that's happening, suddenly you're playing this totally different situation, and they're very ill-equipped to handle it.
Okay. I'm White Marth.
You're White Marth, okay. So far, he's run off the platform and fared twice. So the next time he goes up to the platform, I would be waiting for the fair. So anything that your opponent does, and the thing is melee is really fast.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's very difficult to be like, oh yes, he dashed forward for 13 frames. He does that every time. Like it's...
Yeah, that happened like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
By the time my brain will go like, he came
It,
forward there.
It's extremely difficult, basically humanly impossible, to accurately digest all of your opponent's movements. And so a lot of it becomes knowing which spots of a matchup are the most important to target with your information gathering. So like I was talking about with Falco,
Right.
where you have
you have to have heuristics.
You have to know generally what sort of meaningful decisions can be made in a matchup, and then you can more easily see what types of decisions people are making. And it becomes really easy when somebody's edge guarding or recovering because they have very few options. It's very easy to say, they go to ledge like all the time,
Right.
because it's an easy to contextualize situation because the options are so simple. So a big thing is saying like, okay, what options do people have that are like big threats, that are really good defenses that they do? When people are in very limited situations, such as being on ledge, they're a lot more likely to do predictable options off of ledge because they have so many fewer options to use.
Hmm.
And like a big part of the game, and basically the part of the game that goes forever, and fighting games that kind of goes on forever, is this aspect of the game, which is information gathering, limited information, and manipulating your opponent based on this information. Is like, this is neutral game, and this just keeps going, because it all has to do with like how well you understand your opponent and stuff like that. And so the very best players, so like the people who are like pretty all right at the game, they will see you wave dash out forward smash, and they go, aha, I will contextualize that as a wave dash out forward smash when I threatened you from center or something, or I fared the back of your shield and you wave dashed out forward and you forward smashed the opposite direction. And that is like good. That is like the first layer, is you want to be saying like, all right, in this sort of forced interaction, how does my opponent respond to that, and how can I counter that next time? That's like the first layer. And when you start getting better and better, there's, at the very highest level, the top players all have their own information gathering sort of talents. I'm not going to say talents, but like they have sort of
Sure.
like areas where they're the strongest. And
Okay.
so like Mango is like really good at knowing what you do when you're scared. You can probably tell that by watching him. When somebody does it, when he goes for something and his opponent is scared and they do a defensive option, Mango is so quick to catch onto those habits and contextualize them. Somebody like Amsa is really good at reading full hops. I don't know why, but that is, for some reason, his brain just focuses on the opponent is going to full hop here, and I know it, so I'm gonna full hop and I'll counter it. And he's just, in my experience, he's really good at gathering when his opponent is gonna full hop, at least in Fox Yoshi. So it's kind of like a preference thing, and it's a big part of the game that you can think about and explore, is like, which pieces of my opponent's gameplay are the most important to categorize information wise. And like I said, there are so many things happening, there's so many elements. That's part of why your opponent can't always just instantly adapt and like, quote, learn from a situation or be unpredictable, is because there are so many movements going on. They can't constantly be aware of all the information and habits that they're projecting to you. And so you can figure people out in ways that like they are not aware of, and then punish those habits as you get to like a higher and higher level of doing this. But I would say the place to start at is look for the most important decisions that people make in a matchup, the ones that usually like are out of pressure or they lead to a big opening, and sort of see what types of things people do in those situations.
Okay.
But we're almost at an hour, I think.
Yeah, we're pretty close. So.
What are your thoughts? I've just been sort of monologuing for like half an
No,
hour straight, and I'm curious what you're thinking.
it's. I mean, I think it's going to be hard to implement, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's that whole line of like, what is autopiloting, what I'm actually paying attention to, and I think it's useful knowing like sort of how you described like working on it, right? Because I think a lot of time when I'm just playing, I'm just playing, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
working on things necessarily, or I'm just trying to like generally work on everything, and that's not how it goes. Um, it's sort of weird because I definitely think in like slower, floatier matchups, like Peach Puff type of shit, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a lot more confident being like, okay, this is where they come forward, this is where they swing, this is where they feel pressured, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But the second I'm against, a faster character or a faster player or whatever, it's just, my sort of system of when I'm looking for stuff breaks down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I fall into my how do I not just feel like I'm pressing buttons all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have answers for that better now.
Yeah, so just to review, I think the most important thing is to play and exclusively focus on this.
Right.
Like, simply play people on unranked or whatever. I mean, unranked's probably not the best because most of those people aren't paying attention, but you can practice the basics of, like, seeing if someone is paying attention or not. I think that's probably like the first thing you can like. That's like the most basic thing that you can like obtain.
Sure.
But the idea is basically the more you just heavily focus on this one idea and like purely try to work on it, you like even if you just literally dash dance until you get 4-stock basically, like
Right.
you will gain experience in this, and like by just spamming this one idea and not trying to like work on your entire playstyle at once, your brain will sort of get a bit more fit in like that area, and it'll start optimizing towards doing that. Like basically, if you're playing, like if there's a situation where you feel like you're unable to gather information as well, you want to build up to it. Don't just be like, all right, so I'm going to play this guy and I'm going to remember all of his movements and then I'll use that against him, you know?
Right. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, like,
right.
because that's not going to work. What you want to do is say, like, okay, so what I'm going to do is just sort of do my basic dash dance game. Then, like, oh, he hit me? Okay, like, that's one piece of information. That's, like, the most obvious way to gather information is, like, how did they hit me out of my movement? And if you're doing the same movement, then you know that you're not giving them any extra info with which to hit you with. You're just doing a completely informationless dash dance, and then they are doing options to you, and you can figure out maybe, you know, what options they did. Like, just practicing saying, oh, okay, I was dash dancing, and then they jumped in and they forwarded. And then you dash dance again.
I remember PP talked about this, is like, you have to be able to at least tell what guy you hit in the first place, right? And this is a little bit more than that. Not even why I got hit, but why they swung.
And so the more you simplify and the more you remove variables and the less complicated you make things, and you isolate it down to like, well, I'm not giving any info, so this must have just been like his approach or something like that. Then you start, you know, sort of training wheels, like one thing at a time. You start gathering the most basic of info. Start, like, maybe you're playing somebody and you're just having fun. Every time they recover, say they recovered to ledge, they recovered to stage, they side beat before they recovered, and just start practicing slowly, like consciously, like in your head, literally say to yourself, they recovered high this time. Oh, the next time, and then say, oh, they recovered high last time, but this time they did low. What are they going to do the third time? Like, consciously think those thoughts in your head while you're practicing, and your brain will start moving in that direction, and you'll start building a framework that can eventually end up at a point where you can play a full melee match and actually be spacing and stuff like that, and your brain will still be able to pick up on these habits that people are doing.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta keep my ego out of the way and do it slowly.
Yeah. The slower you do it, the more... Like, the slower you do it, and the more you just pretend you're a day one scrub, and you're a day one scrub about in a game that's only about information gathering, and you have to, you know, strictly use that, the quicker you'll be able to actually just get good, and then enjoy your ego by being good.
Okay. Yeah,
so that's a better way to think about it. Is like your ego... The easiest way for your ego to be satisfied is to temporarily throw it away and just get beat up while practicing this one thing.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair.
But I know I went over a lot of info. You might want to rewatch this lesson again.
I took notes also.
At some point. Okay, that's good. But yeah, this is one of my most in-depth lessons, I think, on Neutral Game. But I hope that this helped you. And we didn't super go over the VOD a lot, and a lot of it was pretty abstract. But I think it's still a lot of relevant info to take in, and like I think that you have a pretty good system now of like what you should be doing to practice to improve this one aspect. So
cool.
Anyway, it was nice talking. I hope you have a good one. I'll send you the Venmo or whatever in a second.
All right, appreciate it, Fiction.
All right, yeah, have a good one. Bye.